Hey, everybody. Welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Tara Setmayer back with us. We'll chat with Tara in just a moment. But first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So Tara Setmayer is co-founder of the bipartisan superpac, the Seneca Project. She's a former GOP Communications Director on Capitol Hill and most recently served as a senior advisor for the Lincoln Project. She's a political writer and commentator who's appeared on MSNOW, CNN, and other news outlets, The View, and Real Time with Bill Maher. Her writing has been featured on CNN.com, Bloomberg, The Daily Beast, Cosmopolitan, and NBC.com. In November 2020, she left the Republican Party after Donald Trump refused to concede the election to Joe Biden. Tara, welcome back into the back room.
Thank you, Andy. Always a pleasure.
So there is just so much insane news coming at us on a daily basis. Give me your top 2 or 3 things that you're focusing on and are most concerned about right now.
Well, there's so many that it's hard to balance that. Are we talking domestic policy? Are we talking about foreign policy? Are we talking about our elections? Are we talking about our budgets? Are we talking about national security? Are we talking about women's rights? Are we talking about what's happening in Congress or not what's happening in Congress? Are we talking about the grift? Are we talking about the corruption? Are we talking about the fact that the president of the United States is out of his freaking mind and is acting so erratically that it's difficult to pinpoint where he is at any given moment? Are we talking about the erratic tweets? It's hard to say like what the top 2 things are because there are so many things happening. But what I will say on this Wednesday is that some of my biggest concerns are the fact that despite how unpopular Donald Trump is, I'm very concerned that not enough of the American people fully appreciate the direct full frontal assault that is happening with our elections and the absolute corrupt grift that is going on every single day at the expense of the American taxpayer. Those are the 2 things right now today that I'm most concerned about.
So let's talk about the elections for a second. Give me an example or 2 of what you think are the most terrifying things right now that could influence and or impact in a negative way the midterms coming up in November.
Well, the fact that there are so many people who are election deniers from 2020 that are currently, right now as we speak, in positions of power inside the federal government that could engage in activity that could make our elections in this midterm questionable. For example, after the Supreme Court ruling last week, going after voting rights, basically decimating the Voting Rights Act, which is, I don't think enough of the American people fully appreciate. It's literally taking us back to the Jim Crow days of making it more difficult for people of color to vote in the South. Mm-hmm. That has now given carte blanche to Republican states to mess around with their elections and with their, gerrymandering districts and all this. We're seeing it happening in Tennessee, in Florida, and other states are now taking their cue in the South, Louisiana, and, Mississippi. They're just chomping at the bit. The old Confederate South is very excited about going there and disenfranchising people of color and even going so far as canceling elections. Well, you have that combined with people inside the federal government who were election deniers. For example, one of the lawyers who defended Donald Trump in 2020, trying to overturn the election, is now in the head of election integrity at the Department of Homeland Security. You have people like Heather Honey, that's her real name, another election denier, batshit crazy people working in the Department of Homeland Security. We know that they're leveraging the power of the Department of Homeland Security to try to seize ballots. We saw what happened in Fulton County. Now we're hearing that they want to get the information of election workers. The federal government wants the information, personal information of election workers in places like Fulton County. We all know that's to intimidate. So we're watching this happening in real time. on top of everything else that's going on, it's kind of in the background, but they are preparing to, quote, take over the elections in November. Trump has said it. He always telegraphs what he plans to do. And because he says so much stuff, because it's such diarrhea of the mouth all the time, people just kind of go, oh, that's just one of a flurry of things that he has said that are alarming. But he has said this repeatedly. And the fact that there isn't blaring headlines every single day about what Trump is doing and what the federal government is doing behind the scenes in conjunction with states and localities to question the integrity of our elections, to disenfranchise people, I think is of grave concern. So that's what's happened just in the last week.
Mm-hmm. Well, we know we can't rely on the Department of Justice, the FBI, the internal law enforcement watchdog agencies to serve as guardrails on this election. I was going to talk about the judicial system and how much faith you have in that. But like when you look at in the last week, I think there was a bunch of judicial nominees for judgeships that went before Congress. And there was this one moment with Senator Chris Coons where he literally is asking a judge about the 22nd Amendment and can Donald Trump run for a third time? And he could not get a straight answer. And then he asked, like, any of the rest of you sitting here who are nominated for judgeships, how do you feel about it? Silence. So
that's right.
That's kind of scary. How confident are you that there are some guardrails in place, like the judicial system, like the legal organizations that are hopefully, with all of this advance notice of things you reeled off before, rightly so, preparing for all this? Do you feel confident that we're going to have a free and fair election in November?
No. And it's only because I do not feel that there are enough people in positions of power who have made this a centerpiece of their day-to-day, particularly the people in Congress, elected officials whose job it is to make sure that laws are upheld, that there's checks and balances on this federal government. And it seems as though they just, I don't know. Is it that they don't believe it? Is it because we've never been in this position before? Maybe they need to be strapped into a seat, like, Clockwork Orange style, and watch videos of January 6th over and over again so that they can be reminded of how far Trump and his MAGA minions are willing to go to try to overturn an election or violate the Constitution. I don't know what it's going to take for them, honestly. And so the only confidence I have in that we're going to be able to push back on this is getting the word out to the American people so that we can continue to have the righteous anger of the American people collectively forcing them to do it. Like, the No Kings rallies were very encouraging because it showed that there are millions of Americans paying attention and willing to go into the streets and make noise about this. But it has to be more than just those marches. This should be happening every week. There should be hundreds of people in the town halls back in their districts when Republicans are back home in their districts, and not just Republicans, Democrats too, demanding that they do their jobs. We have to do this. Otherwise, it's slipping away. The guardrails and the people who were in positions the first term that stopped this kind of crazy from happening are not there anymore. I don't know how more to get it into people's heads that there are no guardrails inside the House anymore. How much more evidence do people need? Every week it's something else. Some other norm is broken. Some other institution is decimated. Democratic institutions that were meant to protect us. They were meant to have guardrails. But institutions don't protect themselves. It takes people to actually do that. So I am very, very concerned. And I can't say that we didn't warn people. Those of us on the pro-democracy side, those of us on the never Trump side, those of us who I'm not a Democrat, I'm an independent, but I came from Republican world and I know the way these people fight. I know their playbook, and it's been very difficult to get people, particularly people with means, to fully understand and invest in the operations and those like us for the Seneca Project, what we do as messengers so that we can get it out there. The other side is very well financed. to the tune of, I mean, Donald Trump's PAC alone, MAGA Inc., has $300 million sitting in the bank right now, cash on hand in the bank. That's just his one super PAC. The amount of money, the amount of money that MAGA has to try to influence the elections and control the narrative, on top of consolidating mainstream media, it with, you know, what's happening with CBS, what's happening with Paramount, what's happening with CNN potentially with this merger, like all of these things. It's people need to wake up because we have to combat it, and we see it every single day. So I'm gravely concerned about what we're up against, but there's still more of us than there are of them. We just need to exercise our power.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Yeah.
Around here, I'm known as Optimistic Andy. So I have to be optimistic. Otherwise, I go up to the roof.
Yeah.
And I take a dive. So since 2024, we've seen a lot of special elections, a lot of elections overall. Democrats have done really well. We're even flipping seats in Texas. That's how well it's been. And that's been happening in large part because not only are Democrats fired up, but Donald Trump has lost many key constituencies of his base, from Gen Z to Hispanics to independents. And now he's even losing parts of his bread and butter, which is non-college whites, to the point where there's predictions of blue wave, some say blue tidal wave. How do we explain the Democrats' success these past 18 months or so, as well as the prospect for a huge margin victory, in which case cheating may not work? You know, it works if it's really close, perhaps in certain places. You know, there's 50 states. Everybody operates differently. It's all state level. He's trying to get into the elections on a state-by-state basis. But like I was recently talking with Adrian Fontes, who's the Secretary of State of Arizona. He led Maricopa County in 2020, so he was in the trench. And he's feeling comfortable, you know, based on what individual states, especially the purple states, can do. So I'm just wondering, like, as we are very aware of what the potential could be, should we temper that also with, but it's not that bad and things are looking pretty good, but we have to stay engaged. We have to fight. We have to vote. We have to blah, 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 blah. Is it all gloom and doom, I guess, is what I'm asking.
It's not a matter of gloom and doom. It's a matter of being realistic about the enemy we face. I caution Democrats about being too optimistic here. We are 6 months exactly away from the election. And right now, everyone's feeling great that, oh, look, like you just said, we've won all these special elections and we've got, you know, good fighters out there in places like Arizona, like Fontes and a couple others that are saying, hey, we're not going to let them get away with this BS. And that's great. However, negative partisanship and fear mongering works. Republicans have never stopped, and they never will. And they will continue to drumbeat the fear mongering, and they will fixate on a couple of the bread and butter issues. They're going to go after immigration. They're already doing this again, warning people if Democrats win, they're going to let 40 million more of these illegal immigrants in here, and they're going to take your jobs, and it's their fault. That's why the economy isn't doing well. It's because of Joe Biden and the Democrats, and though, you know, and letting they're going to let boys and girls sports, and they're going to let them in your daughter's bathrooms in her high school, and they're going to go back to those same issues.
The caravans.
Right, except the caravan thing isn't going to work anymore, but it's going to be, Democrats are going to allow 40 million more illegals into this country. They're going to vote, and they're going to take your jobs, ruin your communities, and whatever, any other problem that Donald Trump has inflicted on this country, they're going to blame it on people who are immigrants or of color or are, transgenders or whatever. Okay, they've already started doing that, and that gets people to pay attention. Now, the other part of this too that I'm concerned about is if yes, we need to you can take those victories and bank them, and that's great. But that people have to understand what's at risk here, what's at stake. It's not necessarily that it's doom and gloom. It's just explaining to people, this is what will happen if you don't fight. We are at war. We're at war. And we've won a couple battles, and that's wonderful. That shows that it can be done. But if you let up and you're confident with like, yeah, all right, we got this, guess what? The enemy knows the weaknesses and they will attempt to try to exploit them. And some of the weaknesses on the Democratic side is that they fixate on the wrong issues.
Mm-hmm.
They get too bogged down into super uber like progressive granular things like, well, we're going to stay home if you're not properly supporting Gaza. We saw what happened in Michigan in 2024 with that. We can't have that kind of stuff. Not saying those things aren't important to people, but folks need to get out of their silos and understand that there's
purity
a much
test.
bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the purity testing is could potentially destroy the Democratic wave that should happen in this election. But like I said, people cannot just sit back and say, we've got this. 6 months is an absolute freaking eternity. Just ask the voters of California how long a week is in politics and how quickly the momentum and things can be upset in what should have been a Democratic runaway with the governor's race. We have to keep the intensity level.
Let me ask you this. You've been around this game a lot. The economy is tanking, depending upon which metrics you look at. Gas is up 50% since the Iran war began. Inflation is rising. Grocery prices are rising. There is no solution to the healthcare problem. There is no solution to the housing affordability issue. Donald Trump has made so many promises to his base to bring all those costs down. He also promised no more wars, and look where we are with this quagmire, which every hour his tweets change. We won. We're losing. We're going to bomb the shit out of them.
Right.
Great progress. Like, it's dizzying.
Incoherent. It's incoherent.
It is incoherent because he's incoherent. Epstein, where are the 3 million Epstein files? Where are the prosecutions? Where are the pedophiles going to jail? So when you look at that, and you look at the shit with Marjorie Taylor Greene and the split in the MAGA movement, the whole Tucker thing and Ben Shapiro and Megyn Kelly and on and on. It does feel like something's different. Like if Lynyrd Skynyrd did the concert and did Freebird, the crowd's going to scream, no, we don't want no more Freebird. Okay? We're sick of Freebird.
Yeah.
And that's what the rigged election, caravans, all that bullshit, that's all it is. Like, can it work again? Now, but my question is, we do have 6 months. 6 months, depending on who you talk to, is either a lifetime in politics or a blip.
It's both.
Yeah, we're heading into summer. We know that's in summer, fuel consumption, supply and demand. Gas is likely, even under the best of circumstances, the Iran war ends tomorrow, right? Oil prices, gas prices, they don't come down the same.
That's right.
As quickly. And so heading into summer, we're not going to see $3 a gallon. We're not going to see $3.50 a gallon gas. We know that economies don't move very quickly, okay? We know that Donald Trump's not going to change. It's not like he's going to wake up tomorrow and listen to his advisors and go, oh, my God, 6 months away from the midterms. I should start acting presidential. No more craziness, right? He's not going to do it. In fact, he does have a knack for doing worse shit every single day. So that's what we know is going to happen. Every day, he's going to do and say worse shit. Affordability, it's a Democrat bullshit, okay?
Right.
So can things change in 6 months better for the Republicans?
Yes, and here's why. Because a lot of people don't pay attention to what's happening the same way that we do. You and me and your listeners are very highly informed, highly engaged people. There are lots of people who have no idea about what's actually happening other than the price of gas and maybe like the cost of living, right? Because that impacts everybody's everyday life.
That's right.
But they need to know who to blame for it. And if they're not told who to blame, depending on where they get their information from, they're just going to say, well, it's Donald Trump's fault, but he's not on the ballot because he's not. They need to understand that it's the Republicans who are propping him up, who are also responsible for this. If people don't know who to blame, that's called negative partisanship. They will believe that it's, whoever gets to them first. That's why it's so important to invest in messaging now so that people, the seed is planted of who to blame. That's what the beauty of Fox News does, right? That's the beauty of the science behind what they do is constant propaganda. No matter, it's not just a couple of weeks before an election. It is a drumbeat for years and years and years and years prior to setting it up so that seed is already planted at, it's the Democrats' fault. It's everyone, it's immigrants' fault. It's women's fault, right? They do this constantly. So now what needs to happen is people need to understand who to freaking blame for what's going on. That's why for us at Seneca Project, we have tried since last year, since DOGE started decimating our government and decimating the private sector who relies, the subcontractors and the contractors who rely on the government for their livelihoods, for towns and states and regions of the country who have been decimated because of what DOGE came in and did and threw our country into absolute chaos in the first quarter of last year. That people need to understand that Donald Trump has betrayed them. Between what happened now, the other thing, Doge and Elon Musk and what they did isn't even in the conversation anymore. And that was a year ago, just a year ago. The reverberations of that, we're feeling them now. We're feeling them. Just ask anyone that relies on the Veterans Administration or anyone who relies on USAID or the farmers whose contracts, billions of dollars in contracts were taken from them as their crops rotted in warehouses because USAID was completely destroyed. And they rely on that. Our American farmers has nothing to do. If you don't like the fact that we help out other countries and soft power is important in other countries, you can feel how you feel. But tell that to Farmer Jones in Iowa and in Texas or California or wherever, who rely on the crops that they grow and get paid for them for their livelihoods. Or tell that to the diner waitress in West Virginia, whose diner is now closed or local cafe is now closed because the government contractor that was building whatever for the government is now gone because of Donald Trump's decision to let Elon Musk and his people go in there and there is a cascading effect that most people in these places don't know. Ask the folks of Iowa right now, after the Trump administration has canceled hundreds of millions of dollars in wind turbine contracts because Donald Trump doesn't like the way they look. Ask those folks in Iowa who rely on
kills the whales, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't
it
the
kills
wind
whales, right. I mean, again, incoherent policy, batshittery policies, but this impacts the people of Iowa. Ask the pig farmers how they're doing because of the tariffs and this nonsense in these trade wars with our Asian trading partners and things like that. Like, they don't know who to blame, and there's an easy way to do this. Donald Trump has betrayed you. And every Republican who supports this is complicit in that betrayal. You have to either get those people to stay home or convert them to vote for Democrat. And that's the part that people, I think, are taking for granted. Just because they're pissed off at Donald Trump and they feel like, oh man, he's talking about that ballroom a lot. Meanwhile, I can't afford to fill up my truck that I use to transport goods as a small business owner. It's costing me 3 times as much money now, and I can't pay my workers. So, but they're not going to vote for Democrats.
Right. Well,
what are they going to do?
Just stay home.
Well, listen, as someone who is very pro-democracy and thinks that more people should be voting, if they choose to stay home on their own, so be it at this point. But we need to make sure that people fully understand who was doing this to them and what you can do about it if you want things to change. That is the concern. Now, the other part about the elections that I wanted to bring up before that I didn't. There's only about 30 competitive districts in the House of Representatives. 30 out of 435. So it doesn't, why Donald Trump and Republicans are trying to rig the elections through this gerrymandering scheme, and why the judicial system basically allowing them to do this in a lot of places matters, is because there's only 30 competitive districts. There used to be a time where there were, 95 competitive districts. Those days are over because of the way they're drawing the maps and drawing these districts. This has nothing to do with equality, has nothing to do with, race shouldn't matter anymore. We're 60 years removed from all of that. We all know that that's bullshit. Okay. It's very, very real.
If optimistic Andy can just play devil's advocate again. And this gets very nuanced. But this is the chatter that in all this redistricting, it's not a given that they pick up the seats they think they're going to get, because you're moving around a lot of Democrats. You're also shrinking the margins so that the races become closer, making them more susceptible perhaps to flippage and backfire. So
but these are in southern districts that are southern states that are controlled by Republicans. So the Republicans are the ones who are, in the Secretary of State position. They're in the Attorney General positions. They're in the governor's mansions.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the manipulating of the rules matters at the state and local level. So the closer those races become, the easier it is for them to say there was fraud. We need to have a recount and bring in the cyber ninjas like in Arizona, which we all know that actually yielded more votes for Biden. That did backfire, but that they are learning from their mistakes. And so they're adapting. You're like a fucking virus. Mm-hmm. They are adapting to the new environment. And I'm hoping, my prayer here in hope is that Democrats and organizations that do this are adapting even more quickly to be prepared for it. We have to go on offense. You cannot be in a defensive crouch all the time. It has to be offensive, because that's offensive, not as, be offensive. Like, go on offense, because the Republicans will do that. That's what they're doing now. This has been a multi-decade long scheme for Republicans on state and local levels, particularly in the South. This is literally the Southern strategy of 2026, of the modern day Southern strategy. And so that's why, yes, it's nuanced, but it doesn't need to be that much. We have to vanquish them, just like what happened in Hungary. The reason why Viktor Orban was able to leave office and his party lost power and things are changing there, is because 2/3 of their vote went against them. So that's vanquishing them. It can't just be slightly by a couple of percentage points. Look what happened in Virginia with the redistricting there. They almost lost that. I live in Virginia. Virginia almost lost their redistricting battle. It only was by 2 points. If the Republicans had another 2 weeks, because the Democrats took their foot off the gas, they thought they had it. And Republicans started pumping money in and confusing. They used all kinds of very deceptive messaging to confuse people about the ballot measure here. And if they had 2 more weeks, I think the Republicans would have defeated that ballot measure. So Democrats can never take their foot off the gas. Never. It has to be full pedal to the metal in every place where this matters. And they just cannot let lack of imagination get in their way of being prepared for what these bastards are trying to do to us.
Yeah, so true. And a virus is a great way to put it. In our last few minutes, let's do a little lightning. There's so much to talk about that I want to get your thoughts on. So let's do a little lightning round, like a little political speed dating here. So as fast as you can answer these things, or give me your thoughts, the better. So Epstein, what's happening next?
I think we need to keep an eye out for the Justice Department talking about pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell or commuting her sentence or something. We've been hearing some murmurings about that. But that would be a travesty, an absolute travesty. And people need to keep the pressure on about the Epstein issue. They cannot let them get away with it. I mean, it was starting to reach the point of critical mass back in February. And then all of a sudden, now we're in a war with Iran. Yeah. So clearly, there's no limit to what Trump and his Justice Department and others will do to try to keep us away from paying attention to that and holding people accountable. But we need to make sure we continue to do that. It's a major story, and it should be an election issue, because if you don't have enough integrity to say, to demand accountability for what these people have done to women and young girls, then you don't deserve the trust of the people to make decisions about anything. So
yeah. Trump's cognitive decline, his insane behavior, his insatiable need to honor himself, like with the Kennedy Center or the passport, the Arch, Palm Beach Airport, his craziness over the Pope and Jesus. What say you on that?
I think that there also needs to be a continued exposure of that. People need to be reminded that this is not normal, this is not okay, and that the American people deserve better leadership. Would they have ever tolerated this type of behavior for Joe Biden or Barack Obama or any other Democratic leader? They wouldn't. So why are we letting Donald Trump get away with this? It's clear that there's something very, very wrong with him.
He can't even stay awake.
He can't stay awake during the day ever.
Mm-hmm.
And so continue to point this out. And, again, it's hard because there's always a fire hose of fuckery, but it's a pretty big deal when the president of the United States is falling asleep, slumped over, slack-jawed during meetings during the day, multiple times a week.
How about, speaking of a fire hose of fuckery, how about the meeting in the Oval Office yesterday with the little kids? Like, when I saw that, all I thought of was the movie Airplane, where he's like, hey, you ever see a grown man naked? Like, what is happening? He's talking to like 7-year-olds. The 7-year-olds, it's almost like the kids were looking at him like, do you understand I'm 7?
Right, which I wish there's some kid to say that, which would be just like,
he would have had his life or her life would have been,
I know,
paved with success forever.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I mean, it's not the first time, but again, it's just another example of how unwell Donald Trump is, both physically and mentally. It's just another example. The guy is such a malignant narcissist that he can't help himself but to talk about bombing Iran and his ballroom and nuclear weapons to 7-year-olds. And he did this also at the Easter egg hunt, right? The Easter egg roll at the White House a couple weeks
Boy
ago.
Scouts.
Right. I mean, it's nonstop for him because this is who he is. He is a malignant narcissist that has no compassion, empathy. He has an inability to do that. And it shows every single day. And it just shows the absolute callousness of the president of the United States. And when you have someone with that lack of character and integrity, even amongst children, it's very dangerous for a democracy. People should care. Character and integrity matter.
He did give a great idea for the Saturday Night Live cold open.
Oh, they've been doing great. I mean, the Capital stuff was hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
But that's another reason why Donald Trump is coming for comedy and coming for free speech. Just ask Jimmy Kimmel and
well, that was my next thing I wanted to ask you about, the whole Disney, ABC, Kimmel, FCC. What the hell is that all about? Like, are we really at a place where the president of the United States is going to try to strip a major entertainment network of its broadcast license because he doesn't like a fucking joke that Jimmy Kimmel made?
Yes, we are. We are. Yep, we are. Thank you, everyone who voted for Donald Trump in 2024. Yes. And again, is this, people should be asking themselves, is this the country you want to live in?
Yeah.
In Donald Trump's America, do you want to live in a country where the president of the United States is using the full power of the United States government to punish comedians for cracking jokes about him and his wife that they don't like? And they're willing to use, the powers of the government against them to punish them for it. I mean, it's not just Jimmy Kimmel. It's not just the major networks. It's also, they're coming for individual free speech next. They're trying to sue influencers for making jokes or just speaking out against their government. That is one of the hallmarks of our freedom and our Constitution in this country. It's the first fucking amendment for a reason. Yeah. So in Donald Trump's America, is this how you want our country to look and behave, and people, or do you want to put people in power who are okay with that? We need to ask ourselves this question every single day.
Well, that leads into the next one, is the Comey indictment and weaponizing the Department of Justice to go after your enemies.
Yeah. Again, the absurdity of this, the absurdity of someone being prosecuted, the former FBI director, whether it was stupid of him to, or, whether it was wise of him to tweet something like that out or not, given the environment we're in, that's a different argument, but it's not criminal. It's not criminal. But in Donald Trump's America, it's criminal to post a picture of seashells on a beach that criticize the government. Again, this is Donald Trump's America, but it's up to us to change that direction.
Mm-hmm. Last one, Scott Jennings and his Will Smith moment to Adam Mockler. Get your fucking hand out my face. What do you? I mean, is this what we have now on CNN and MSNOW? Like, is this the new norm? Like how guests talk to each other? I mean, that was fucking crazy.
Not the first time.
And then he's still on the air.
Not the first time. I would just like to say that Scott Jennings has been losing his shit on air at people for a couple years now, including against a lot of women, including against women of color. I have battled Scott Jennings many times on panels where he has been disrespectful, tried to be anyway, disrespectful to me. I don't take orders from you. And, like things that he called Val Demings, a former congresswoman and chief of police of Orlando. Okay. I told her that she was too stupid to understand what she was saying and got away with that. Scott Jennings is a snowflake. He's a performative prick. And he has gotten paid lots of money to be that person. He's emboldened by it. And the fact that he is allowed to behave that way, and the fact that Adam Mockler, who is very smart and very good at debating Scott, the fact that this has gotten that much attention, I have mixed feelings about it because he's been doing this for so long, particularly to women, and no one blinked an eye. And now because he did it to a young, smart white guy, white kid, all of a sudden now, we're having these discussions about Scott Jennings. He's been doing this for a long time. He also threatened Michael Eric Dyson a couple years ago on a panel as well. And again, that's a black man. And we didn't have these same discussions. So I'm glad to see that people are pointing it out now. But I don't know that CNN or anybody else is going to do anything about it because they've pretty much turned political commentary into Jerry Springer episodes every night. And I take no pleasure in being put in those situations and where it gets that way. But they need to be checked. And I say to those of us who are on those panels, you continue to check them with facts because you see what happens when they melt down, when they cannot argue the facts and when they're exposed for the hypocrites that they are. This is what you get from them.
Yeah. Well, the moral of the story is that Adam Mockler ate him for lunch.
Absolutely.
But and I love Abby Phillip, but I think she's got to change the opening to her show where she says, people in America can't talk today when, but they can here. Well, clearly not.
Listen, I love Abby. She's really smart. I hate that they've put her in this position to be a referee. She's much smarter than that. And I do that show often. I just came back from New York from being on her program and with Adam, by the way. And I just wish that they didn't put her in that position and that there was more consequence for being a performative liar on air.
Yeah. Tara, good stuff as always. And I do hope people listen to you because your warnings should not go unheeded.
Yeah, listen, I hope so too. And it's one of the reasons why I'm in this fight. It's because we can't candy coat what's going on. I'm usually very optimistic and want to lead people with hope, but we can only hope is not a strategy. We have to be warriors. We are in the battle for the soul of America again, to take a line from Joe Biden. But we are in a final battle here. We cannot take any of it for granted. So that's what I wake up and look forward to every single day. And that's what we do at the Seneca Project. And I hope people support us in our efforts.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhinecliff, with additional editing by Maddie Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Langell. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.